Dungeon Crawler Carl is one of the most popular fantasy books being discussed on BookTube right now. Some readers say it's their new hyperfixation, while others claim it's the fall of literacy. So I checked it out, and today I'm answering one simple question. Should you read Dungeon Crawler Carl? Now, I'm not here to give you my opinion, more so to help guide you towards yours. This is a spoiler-free deep dive broken down into 6 categories. The first one is plot. This book hits the ground running from the very first page. You are not given a moment to breathe before you are introduced to Carl and Princess Donut, before they are whisked away into this crazy dungeon crawling experience. Now, I gotta say that from the first moment I kinda knew this was gonna be a book that I would be rinsing through from start to finish, because it really just does not let up. You get introduced to the inciting incident, and before you know it, Carl and Princess Donut are thrown into this kind of video game style thing where they've got to survive to get to the end. And yeah, it's very quickly, within the first 10 pages, made clear as to who these characters are and what they are going to need to do to be able to survive. And there is so many things going on a moment-to-moment basis that you are never actually bored of what is going on within the plot. There is always a goal that Carl is working towards, and you are sprinkled with all kinds of fun rewards, whether that be achievements that Carl gets along the way, or upgrades, or new boss battles, or new NPCs to be entangled with. There is always something going on within this book. On the top of that, there is an underlayer of the plot going on that we don't fully know and that we're not actually fully seeing right now, that is definitely generating a level of intrigue. Now, one of the main problems that I had with the plot of this book, and in my opinion is probably the problem with the book in general, is that this world is horrible. And the issue with that is that I don't fully understand why Carl would want to survive in it. I have no idea what he's going to get if he does survive. There is no kind of offer at the end of it other than he gets to exist. Where he gets to exist, who knows? What he would be doing when he does exist, who knows? Why he cares about doing this, again, who knows? There is literally no reason or stake for him to be there. There is no person from the real world that he is trying to find, or, there is no other mission other than be part of the games and survive. And that is literally the only problem I really had with this overall book. And because of this lack of clarity, I quite often found myself being like, why are you doing this? I know this is a different situation to anything I'll ever get myself into, but, why are you so motivated to survive within this world? There are, of course, as time goes on, motivations that are added, but those things, for me, they come a little bit too little too late, and I still don't have the big overarching thing as to what I'm rooting for, other than survival. But what makes up for this is the fact that every single moment there is something that he is working towards, so you can kind of get on board with that. Even though there's always this kind of background question for me of, why are we doing this and what's the point? There's also the fact that actually, if you were thrown in this situation, I don't know if I'd choose to not be there, but at the same time, I find it very difficult to comprehend the situation and the way that he's doing it. Even if Carl felt hope, that's the one thing I think is missing. Hope. He needs to hope for something better. He doesn't hope for something better. There's never a moment where he's like, well, if I can get through this, then maybe I will be able to go back to normal. Even if going back to normal is not an actual option, I think if it was mentioned as like a background thing, that was what was kind of motivating him to continue on, instead of consistently kind of acting like he just sort of takes it in his stride and gets on with it. And yes, it's a little bit comical at times, but actually I think a lot of the comedy of this book actually comes from the fact that they are poking fun at Carl, and Carl isn't necessarily making the jokes. So I think, through Carl, we should really be grounded. That being said, I think the plot moves in such a way that there are plenty of moments throughout the plot where you are having a good time. The structure of this plot is very different to anything that I have read in a while. I actually think the structure of this plot doesn't necessarily work in a traditional sense. And I don't want to annoy anybody who loves this book. I'm not by any means saying this is a bad book per se. I'm just saying that when you pick up this book, be aware that this book plays like a video game in some ways and moves like a video game, so that if you're expecting a really big climax at the end of this book, you're not going to get one, because you're just moving on to the next part of the book. That is kind of how this book goes. There are some big set pieces in here. There are some big action, awesome moments. But the climax of this book, for me, it just felt like we were just getting to the next bit of the book. It never really felt like any major sort of tension was being created towards the end, which is kind of what I'd expect. But overall, plot-wise, I don't think the plot is the reason why people pick up this book and enjoy it. I think it's actually more to do with the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is the characters. Now, the characters, I am happy to say, are absolutely brilliant. From the very, very first page, I knew that I liked Carl. He comes across as this everyday dude who you just kind of root for, because he's just an everyday dude. He's down on his luck. His ex-girlfriend has just cheated on him with someone. He's slowly but surely finding out that she wasn't exactly the person that he thought she was, and he's just found himself in a world where he literally has nothing left. So, you know, of course we're going to root for him, because you always want to root for the underdog. And of course, what makes him even more endearing is how much he cares about Princess Donut, the cat, who, at the very start of the book, is a cat. Is exactly what you'd expect from a cat. Being a cat, being, you know, arrogant, obnoxious, being self-centered, all the stuff that you'd expect from a cat. But as time goes on, the genuine development of these characters is what is at the heart of these books. If you are looking for something that is going to make you feel heartwarming towards characters, this is going to be a good book for you, because while there are a lot of dark and sadistic moments, the interactions between Princess Donut and Carl are some of the best interactions in the entire book, and they are such fun to watch. So I've got to say that those two characters are absolutely brilliant. You do meet some other characters along the way. I don't really want to talk about them too much. I will say that NPCs are more than what you'd expect an NPC to be. I'll also say that when we meet other players within the game, we do get to understand a little bit more of the moral dynamics of being part of this game, and it is extremely fascinating. There are also some characters on the peripherals, which I'm assuming we'll probably meet later on down the line, and all of these characters make to be quite interesting in the things that they do and what they say, and I found myself being very invested in a lot of these characters. One particular one that stands out to me, I won't give you any major context, but Mrs. Gibson really stood out to me as a character that warmed my heart and made me feel so sad for the people that are involved within these games. Where Matt Dinniman's plotting isn't perfect, it's, you know, probably what you expect out of LitRPG. I've never read one before, so I don't know. The characters are kind of where this book starts to come alive. Of course, characters aren't the only place where this book excels, because our next category, fun factor, is probably the reason why most people pick up this book. In fact, most people that I hear speak about this book are saying that they had a really fun time reading it, and that it was lots of fun. And the reason why it is so fun is because it genuinely does put you into the game, and you are seeing the game unfold, and you're seeing different things happen, and there's a huge level of fun following the characters down the journey that they're going down, figuring out how they are going to be sorting things out. There is literally back-to-back action as well. There's so many bits of action and so few moments of brevity. There are, of course, the occasional moments where you will just take a quick breath, but it's a quick breath, and then you are thrown back into the scenario once again. There is a huge degree of humour that is threaded throughout the entire story, and sometimes that humour can get slightly annoying. However, I have got an interesting take on this, and I think that is because the humour is there to annoy Carl, and Carl is very much you. You are Carl in this situation. You are put into his shoes. He is the main POV. When you are reading from Cole's point of view, of course the humour is going to get annoying sometimes and overbearing, because I do believe that the humour is overbearing to annoy Cole and to create more entertainment for the show that they are making. So I actually don't think that's such a bad thing, and I do think it was fully intentional. I have seen people online slating Matt Dinniman for his comedy and for trying to be too funny in this book, but I actually don't think it's Matt Dinniman that's trying to be funny. It's the aliens that have created this game that are trying to be funny, and I genuinely think it was an intentional intentional thing, because then it annoys Carl. That being said, there are a couple of things that do affect the fun of this overall book, one of which is that it can sometimes be a little bit breathless. There are sometimes times where I just needed to take a bit of a break because so much had just gone on at such a breakneck pace. And then the other thing that I would mention is the fact that there are moments of huge darkness and disgust, and if you're not into kind of disgusting things and you're quite sensitive to that type of stuff, it might actually affect your fun a little bit, as it kind of did for me. I am a little bit sensitive to some of the imagery that we are put through in this particular story. There are some really distressing moments, actually, and those distressing moments did cause me to feel a little bit on edge when I was reading the book. I'd find myself kind of dreading what the next disgusting imagery was going to be, and kind of wishing that the disgusting imagery wasn't there, because then I feel like this book would be a lot more fun overall. It's not that I didn't have a good time, it's just sometimes there was a background thought process going on in my head, like, what's the next gross out moment gonna be? But of course, that also laces itself in with the next category, which is emotional resonance. When going into this book, I was expecting it to just be a good time and just generally expecting to have tons of fun and a lot of laughs along the way. And in many ways, it delivered on this. However, I did not expect the sheer level of actual emotion I would feel towards some of the things that happen within this book. There is one particular scene that I am thinking of, which kind of comes out of absolute nowhere, and it shocked me, and it made me sad, and it made me angry, and it just gave me all of the feels, because Dinniman kind of knows how to make you care about these characters. You remember Mrs. Gibson, who I mentioned earlier on? Well, the thing I really liked about her, and the reason why I so emotionally resonated with her, was simply down to the fact that she was human and she lived a human life. And there's something very tragic about all of the characters that appear within this story, because they're all just humans that are now forced to live in this kind of barbaric, horrible way. And I think the satire sits at the surface to hide some of the darker themes that are hidden within this book, and I genuinely think that it's really well explored when we go into the moments of what it would be like to live in this world. This isn't just a fantasy, this is actually a take on reality and what reality could be if this genuinely happened. And I think these moments are really important and are what make Dungeon Crawler Carl stand out so much. I've never read another lit RPG, but I feel like this type of experience is kind of what sets Dungeon Crawler Carl apart from the crowd, because, and I can't compare it to anything, so tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I do believe that it's this kind of ability to be emotional and be in the series and be kind of like genuinely wondering what you would do in that scenario that makes it so very special. Now, there is some humor within this book that I think is going to be offensive to some people, especially if you're quite sensitive towards them. So I would highly recommend reading some of the more negative reviews that will give you some of the kind of jokes that you might be coming across within this book. And if those things affect or upset you in any way, it might just not be the read for you. I have seen a lot of people slate it based on its humor sometimes, and the jokes don't always land. I've already told you what my take on the humor is, but I think it would be wrong to not go in telling you that some of the humor can be a little bit crass at times. So you gotta kind of prepare yourself for that and to decide whether that is something that will be for you or not. And with every fantasy book, there is always the world building to discuss, and that is no different with this one. The world that unfolds within this story is kind of broken up into two parts. You've got the actual world of the game that Carl is playing, and then you've got the world outside of that that created said game. Now, the world outside of that you don't really get too much of a glimpse of, but whenever you do, it is extremely fascinating and definitely one of the reasons why I would continue reading on to the next books, because I want to know more about this world. There is some really fascinating concepts that are discussed very early on as to why this game started, why Earth was chosen, how it was created. It was all very, very interesting stuff that you get a little bit of, and then through the subtext of characters who are involved within that world, you do start to get a bit of an an idea as to what is going on behind the scenes, which is extremely interesting but mostly cloaked in intrigue. As for the world of the game, it's really well set out. Matt Dinniman does a really good job of just using that kind of video game trope to be able to give you any information that you might need, but he does it in such a way where you don't feel you're being spoon-fed because you're too busy laughing at some of the sarcasm that is laced underneath it. So I would say that while this isn't going to be one of those fantasy worlds that you go to get lost in, there is a huge degree of intrigue about this world that is yet to unfold throughout the series, and I think I will be continuing reading one day because I would like to know a bit more about that. In terms of readability, I would say that Matt Dinniman's prose is just extremely easy to read. A lot of the work is done within the dialogue for the characters, and that really excels. Everyone's kind of got their own unique, distinct voice. Carl even has his own catchphrase by the end of the book, and that brings it together really well. I don't think Dinniman ever really says anything that's going to be particularly challenging in terms of the way that he writes it. I think it's prose that you can pick up. There were a few moments where I found the occasional clunky sentence. It had a bit of repetition in it, but I kind of look for that kind of thing. But there was nothing that kind of pulled me out of the overall story. So the prose itself is actually extremely immersive, and it's not trying to be anything too fancy. It's not trying to be Patrick Rothfuss or J.R.R. Tolkien. It's just trying to get you to the point. It's immersive, and you don't really notice it's there most of the time. So overall, I would say there are two types of people that I would recommend this book to. One, there are people who are into fantasy, who just want a break from the usual kind of quest stuff, the kind of medieval stuff. Like, you want a bit of a break, you want something different, something that's got a little bit of a sense of humour maybe, then this would be a really good book for you. Alternatively, if you haven't read anything and you're not really into fantasy yet, and you kind of want to get into fantasy, then maybe this would be a great start, really. It's very easy to be able to get on with because it pretty much starts in a place where you'll be be recognising it very well. And then a third secret category that I didn't mention are people that are into video games. I do believe would probably enjoy this book, especially if you're into video games and you kind of want to start reading books, then this will probably be the book for you. However, if you're looking for something epic and sprawling, this might not be the one. But if you're going in knowing that this is going to be quite funny and crass in places, that the stakes can sometimes be a little bit confused, and that you're actually going to be enjoying a good time with characters, having a lot of fun, and essentially just enjoying the world as you go. So I do believe that this is a book that's worth reading, but whether it's for you or not, that is for you to decide. Tell me, if you have read Dungeon Crawler Cole, would you recommend it to people? Who would you recommend it to? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.